Hello, I'm Julie, and my relationship with my mother-in-law has been challenging from the start. Since our initial meeting, she has consistently been rude and condescending, making it clear that she doesn't approve of me as her son's wife. The situation escalated when my husband encouraged me to buy our first home. While he contributed to the purchase, my mother-in-law began nitpicking every flaw in the house and criticizing my choices. She even added insult to injury by gifting us unattractive decorations that clashed with my style, tarnishing my dream of a beautiful home. The turning point came when my mother-in-law attempted to sow discord between my husband and me. She would fabricate stories about things I allegedly said or did, aiming to create doubt in our relationship. Despite trusting the natural course of things, I eventually had to stand up for myself and my dignity. In an effort to mend the strained relationship, I invited her to dinner, investing time and energy into preparing a meal. Unfortunately, her response was far from gracious. During the dinner, she disparaged the dish, expressing disdain for my cooking skills and suggesting I take cooking classes. Despite my attempts to bridge the gap and find common ground, she remained unyieldingly critical, even comparing me to kaiju. The situation worsened when she mentioned a previous incident where I supposedly burned the roast. In the face of such negativity, I continued to strive for civility, expressing my desire for us to enjoy a pleasant meal together. However, my mother-in-law's unwavering criticism and refusal to meet me halfway left me feeling frustrated and disheartened. I once made a mistake by causing some conflict, burning a metaphorical rose. But I've learned from it, and am improving. Can we please focus on the present and enjoy this meal without any negativity? It would be great if you could set aside any grumpiness, just for this moment. In the past, my mother-in-law would pick up food and make aggressive comments throughout the meal, making me feel uncomfortable in my own home. I used to leave it for the ladies to sort out and never stood up for myself when Katherine had something to say. Steven, my partner, would dismiss my concerns, asking me to let it go and let his mom be. I remember attending my aunt's birthday party, where she had turned the basement into a space for painting and enjoying wine with snacks. What was supposed to be a fun occasion became uncomfortable when my mother-in-law, my personal kaiju, unexpectedly showed up. Despite expressing surprise, my aunt had invited her to smooth things over. Despite my discomfort with Katherine's rude and passive-aggressive behavior, I tried to enjoy the event. During the party, my mother-in-law, wearing a revealing shirt, accidentally got paint on herself while getting drunk. My aunt and mom tried to help her clean up in the bathroom. Feeling protective, I joined them, not wanting to leave my mom alone with my mother-in-law. Meanwhile, Julie praised her boyfriend Jonathan, portraying him as a changed person who treats her exceptionally well. However, others questioned his past behavior, wondering what Steven thought about their previous conflicts with Jonathan. He's unaware. His stubbornness prevents him from letting go of the past. My current happiness is what matters most at the moment. I'll share the truth with him when the timing is right. Jonathan, my husband's old bully, is now dating my mother-in-law. Anticipating my husband's negative reaction, I approached her about it, but she became furious. She always ensured there was tension between my husband and me, as he never spoke to her. Steven, my husband, wasn't supportive, so I took matters into my own hands. Accused of trying to create tension, I defended myself, recalling instances like a dinner where I felt unwell and a revealing shirt incident at my aunt's party. I confronted her about dating Jonathan, giving her a day to inform Steven. Stressing the impact on our marriage, I urged her to understand the consequences of her actions. Later that night, a phone call changed my life. Living with Steven felt like coexisting with a lazy, unproductive stranger. He spent entire days lounging on the couch, dismissing my requests for help with chores or errands. Emotionally absent and unsupportive, he ignored my feelings and concerns, making it seem like we were strangers cohabiting without any shared interests. Now I'm asking for help with the dishes, explaining they're piling up in the sink. However, Steven, engrossed in something else, deflects the request, citing a work deadline. I plea for a few minutes of assistance, emphasizing the urgency of the situation. I fail to comprehend why I am expected to comply with all your requests, considering that I also have obligations to attend to. For instance, while I spend the entire day on the couch, I've been diligently searching for employment, a task that is not as straightforward as it may seem given the challenge of finding a position that aligns with my qualifications. I acknowledge the importance of contributing to household responsibilities, but I find it perplexing that you continue to charge me rent for utilizing the basement as my office, when in fact, I have financially invested in the entirety of this house. I've been covering all the expenses related to groceries and bills, which should be recognized as my contribution. Moreover, It's disheartening that you seem oblivious to the effort I put into working 14 hours a day to sustain our household. I have the privilege of working from home, thanks to the flexibility granted by my firm to senior associates. Despite having purchased the entire house, I find it frustrating that you persist in renting the basement from me. Our communication breakdown is further exacerbated by your indifference to my needs and the intrusive influence of your mother. I've reached a breaking point where I can't tolerate the lack of support or your mother's interference any longer. In response to your query about what I want, Julie, I'm not asking you to sever ties with your mother, but I implore you to stand up for our relationship. Additionally, a more equitable distribution of responsibilities within the household is imperative. If there is no positive change, I am seriously contemplating the possibility of a divorce. Throughout our argument, Steven remained silent, later venting his grievances to his mother, who reciprocated with rudeness towards me. The situation has become increasingly challenging and unpleasant, making each day an ordeal. I yearn for an escape from this turmoil. To my surprise, my mother-in-law visited that night, throwing divorce papers at me and treating me with disdain. In her eyes, I was an inadequate being not worthy of her son. Despite her disapproval, I refuse to be belittled and am considering taking the necessary steps to reclaim my peace of mind. It's apparent that our differences have reached an irreconcilable point, and I am presented with divorce papers to be signed by tomorrow. I reject the notion that I am incapable of making a marriage work, and I stand firm in my decision to seek a resolution that ensures my well-being. Oh, that reminds me. You're planning to rent out your house and join us for the summer. Let's see how that unfolds. Perhaps Katherine is unaware of the repercussions her actions might have. Steven is financially dependent, and everything, the gifts, the trips, is a result of my hard work and money. It's essential not to portray oneself as a queen with unchecked privileges. Remember that it was my earnings that covered that diamond ring and your car expenses. No, you can't dismiss this as lies. Steven truly has no money. He has been relying on my income and the rent I pay for too long. It's unfair to me, and frankly, he's become a lazy presence, doing nothing but filling the room with an unpleasant odor. Ridiculous as it may sound, Steven is a man, my boy, and he would never let you support him in that way. I've been generous for a long time, and both of you have taken advantage. You're both like leeches draining the life out of someone. Someday, when you're not all old and wrinkled, perhaps never, I hope you can see things from my perspective. Reviewing the divorce papers, I found my key to freedom. Unexpectedly, I heard something I never thought possible. Julie, I'm sorry. Please don't go through the papers. I didn't know this. Hear me out. I acknowledge I've been difficult, and I apologize for how I've treated you. Sorry? Coming from you, that's rich. I understand. Please put it down. I haven't been the best, but I'm willing to change. You never told me about the funds. You're just a bully. No wonder you and Jonathan get along. He's just as much at fault. He's a lazy couch potato, and you've enabled his behavior. Don't sign those papers. I encouraged him to do all this. Please, I'm begging you, don't leave him. He's my son, and I love him. We can work things out, and we can reconsider the financial aspect. I can stay with you, and you can keep paying us rent. Pay rent in my house? I can't endure this toxic environment any longer. You guys are terrible, and I can't even look at your face right now. It was tough to say, but I knew it was the truth. Steven pleaded for me to stay as he emerged from the couch, and my mother-in-law would undoubtedly try to convince me otherwise. However, I couldn't continue living in such a manner. As I picked up the papers and walked away, my heart was heavy with the weight of my decision. I was aware that the decision I was about to make would alter the course of my life permanently. I had aspirations that Steven couldn't fulfill, the desire to build a family and foster close bonds. However, his mother's unpleasant demeanor had become intolerable for me. Feeling the need to confide in someone, I called my mom and my aunt, the individuals closest to me. They were the ones who could truly understand my predicament. I'm at a loss, Mom. Steven just lounges around all day, neglecting chores and contributing nothing to the household. I even pay rent in my own home, providing him with an allowance. I've talked to him, but he becomes defensive, insisting he's trying his best. It's clear he's not putting in any effort, I explained my frustration. That's not fair to you, Julie. You work hard for your money, and he should be contributing. My mom empathized. Exactly. It's disheartening to witness his behavior, especially since his mother manipulates him so easily. I want to talk to him and see how it goes, I said, determined. Upon arriving home, I found multiple voicemails from Katherine, pleading for me to stay. Frustrated, I shared the situation with my confidants. Do you even know about this? My aunt inquired. Is this something you want to fight about again? God, you're annoying. Wow, the whole family is crazy, huh? Anyway, Your mother is dating Jonathan. Plus, thanks for never telling me that you've wanted a divorce for the longest time. I expressed my exasperation. She's dating Jonathan. She knows how horrible he was to me. How can she do this to me and Julie? With your nagging, I don't want to be with somebody like you. My mother was right. You're not good enough for me. I don't want to sign the papers, but you're unbearable. I don't know why I bothered begging you to stay. I can do just fine without you. I'm a man. I can support myself, Steven retorted. I couldn't believe his words. I'm not good enough for you? Have you taken a look at yourself? You haven't showered in 6 days because not a single job notification has come in. You've been on unemployment forever. It's pathetic to see you like this, I responded, finally making him acknowledge my presence. Do you wonder what your perception of me is? You're leaving, and all we intended was to make you aware. If I expressed how your actions affected me, perhaps you'd reconsider. The papers were a way to illustrate your challenging and hurtful behavior. We aimed to impart a lesson. It's astonishing. I can't find the right words for you. Your actions are beyond comprehension, and I can't believe this is transpiring. I've signed the papers and contacted my attorney. Expect to hear from him soon. I want you out of the house by 6 p.m. today, along with the $20,000 you paid for the basement. I tossed the money at Steven, who looked shocked, while Katherine stood at the door, wide-eyed. I won't sign the papers, Steven declared. Fine then. You leave me no choice but to report your mother for abuse and theft to the authorities. Both of you have been taking advantage of me, even asking me to pay rent in my own house. What about us? What about our life? Steven questioned. Good luck with it. I hope you don't end up starving under a bridge. Never contact me again. I want you out by tonight. As I walked away, Steven complained about the unfairness, accusing me of being mean. Katherine begged me to stay, but I knew leaving them behind was crucial for my well-being. Steven, once idealized, was just a flawed human. Departing and evicting them was the most peaceful decision for me. It wasn't an easy choice, and I still reflect on it, feeling remorseful. I had endured manipulation and exploitation for too long. After they left, I focused on myself and my happiness. I purchased a new home in a different city and began building a life entirely my own. Starting a business from scratch with colleagues was challenging but invigorating. Everything was growing for me. I desired to delve deeper into the topic. I must say I'm truly impressed by the strides you've made with the company. Your unwavering dedication is yielding positive results. George, your support means a lot. The journey has been demanding, but the hard work is proving worthwhile. I'm genuinely excited about what lies ahead for us. On the subject of the future, have you considered the prospect of expanding the firm? Perhaps hiring more staff or establishing another location? Indeed, I have. I've undertaken some research, and while I'm still in the planning stages, expansion is on the table. In a positive turn, I've also welcomed a son into my life who brings immense joy. He's my ray of sunshine, and we cherish our moments together in the park. Regrettably, regarding Steven and Katherine, I've distanced myself. Katherine occasionally contacts me for financial assistance, asserting that I took everything from them, leaving them with nothing. They're struggling in a motel, asking for money to alleviate their situation. I cannot comply with their request. It's time for them to take responsibility for their own lives. Steven needs to actively seek employment rather than relying on handouts. I've made it clear that they need to find their solutions. They accused me of considering our son too good for them, but now they must face the consequences of their choices. Despite their apologies, the way they treated me cannot be forgotten. Their current hardships are a result of their actions, and I cannot provide the financial support they seek. Their appeal for assistance is met with a firm stance. They must confront and resolve their issues independently. I acknowledge their struggles but cannot bear the responsibility for their choices. Jonathan refuses to communicate, and their plea for understanding falls on deaf ears. Their narrative of hitting rock bottom is not enough to change the past, and I remain steadfast in my decision not to provide financial aid. I appreciate your desire to share your perspective, but the past actions have left a lasting impact. I chose not to engage in an argument with her about Jonathan, as I didn't want my son to witness my anger and frustration with my mother-in-law. Despite my reluctance, I allowed her to express herself, and she proceeded to share details about a conversation with her boyfriend. Determined not to be manipulated any further, I refused to be drawn into her schemes. Addressing Jonathan, I questioned the recent emotional distance, expressing my inability to continue being his financial support. I could no longer pretend that everything was fine while continuously providing financial assistance. In response, Jonathan shockingly revealed that our relationship was built on my financial status, stating that he could not endure my aging and expensive health issues any longer. Despite my hurt, I firmly asserted that we were not his enablers, encouraging him to find a life elsewhere and vowing never to be in contact again. I later discovered that Jonathan had obtained a job as a janitor, struggling financially and living paycheck to paycheck. Although I understood the challenges of such a situation, I felt no sympathy, relieved that this phase of financial exploitation was behind me. In a twist of fate, Megan and Steven found themselves living in a shelter, facing the imminent threat of homelessness. Steven, having lost his spot in the shelter, now resided under a nearby bridge. Katherine managed to secure benefits as an elderly woman, allowing her to stay in the shelter. Meanwhile, I moved on from that difficult chapter, purchasing a new home with a different address. With new clients on board, my son and I now enjoy a home with a pool and yard, embracing a life far removed from the turmoil of the past.